Hi there, welcome to another edition of 411 Pop Culture. This is your host, Justin Steele. Today with me is my friend Danielle, and tonight we are going to talk about The Conners premiere. Thanks for joining me, Danielle. What did you think of the premiere? What are your thoughts?
I am really conflicted. I With everything and all the drama that happened with Roseanne and her coming off the show, I thought, I'm a more liberal person, so I thought, yep, this is the right thing to do. There's consequences for things you say and do. And the minute she wasn't there on the show, I felt disappointed. I was happy that I was watching it and it was continuing, but I really was sad that she wasn't there, and I was disappointed.
I'm also a little bit more liberal on my views, but I don't think that she should have been fired. I have another video talking about this specific issue, but to sum it up, I think that, the show was set up so that both sides of the coin, conservative versus liberal, were being heard, and it allowed a platform where, say you're more conservative, your point's being heard, so you're more willing to listen to the liberal side, and vice versa. Your liberal viewpoint is being heard, so you're more likely to at least then listen to the Republican or conservative side. And without Roseanne there, I'm worried that is going to tilt and not be as prominent.
Right.
So, I definitely think she should be held accountable for her actions. And it was a very upsetting and horrible thing that she said and wrote. By no means should it just be swept under the rug.
Right.
But I knew coming in that I was going, something was going to be missing. However, I was pleased with the first episode. The problem for me is that going from the previous series to the 10th season, the first season back, the 10th season, was going to be a transition season.
Yeah.
And I felt like by the second season, or the 11th season, if you will,
Right.
would have had them finding their groove a little bit more, and I feel like we just jumped backwards.
Yeah.
And it's still fine, but it's another transition season that ahead of us, and then it will be another season again before they find their groove. Now, I did do another video talking about Roseanne versus the Conners and, what my predictions or hopes were going to be for it. And Whitney Fan 47 replied and said, in terms of making sure that maybe there's a balance with the political aspects of the show, Dan could eventually come out as a Trump supporter. Because I don't think Roseanne was very vocal about it, but I don't really
Right.
recall in the 10th season Dan really mentioning about it. So it could be,
Or in
like
any
that.
season, I don't think he was ever really voiced any kind of political.
Well, I think he was definitely more. I feel like he was more conservative. And especially with his character in terms of the relationship with his grandson Mark, played by Ames McNamara. John Goodman and his character, which I really liked from the first episode back of The Conners, how they explored that. But I mean, would you want Dan to be political? Like, you don't want him to be on the right side, you said. Definitely.
I don't want anybody to be on the right side, but
honestly, though, I like to be clear too. I don't think that that's like all the show is about. I think Roseanne, the original run, was really good at naturally incorporating those sort of elements, because it is stuff that we talk about every day. So she
Right.
was able to, make it a comedy. But, ultimately my favorite moments from the original series were the family moments.
Yeah.
The families getting together and stuff. And I think that's what people always responded to. I think that was the most palpable. Again, like Dan with Mark.
Yeah.
Dealing with the Ames McNamara's character was trying to figure out which boy to sit by on the bus.
Yeah.
And it started off, as it usually does, with the Dan grandson scenes, slightly awkward. You're like, ugh, where's this going to go? And it always starts off kind of bad, and then Dan usually pulls it together by the end. And it was really touching, I thought.
Yeah.
But so what were some of your favorite little moments from the first episode of The Conners? I guess from here on out, we'll start saying first episode, season 1 of The Conners, because it's a new show now.
One of my favorite parts was obviously all the interaction between Dan and his grandson. I liked those. I was expecting a little Jackie to be a little bit more of a mess.
Well, sure, but she was kind of a mess.
She was kind of a mess.
She definitely brought that to it.
She did, but I think I was expecting mess like she was like in her bed curled up. And I was glad that she wasn't like that. Sure. I'm glad that she was trying to kind of take over and be there and
rearrange the kitchen.
Yes, like I'm glad that it went
you're
the other
right.
way.
I think though it could have. I think very well Jackie, the character of Jackie, could have gone either way. She's
Right.
either going to be depressed, curled up in a ball, or she's going to be manically. Is that a word? She's going to be manically trying to take control of the situation, fix everything up. Which
Keep herself busy.
Yeah, and you know what? I do think that that was the way she would have gone, especially with somebody like Roseanne, who she relied on so much. I feel like it allowed her, and I think this happens in our lives. We have people we depend upon, and we think when we lose them, what are we going to do now? We can't. But once we do, we kind of then become empowered in a way, and I think that's kind of the way Jackie's going to go.
With everything, how my summer went, you know, it was definitely hit close to home. I felt like maybe 3 weeks wasn't long enough, but you could see still some of the sad elements and the emotion, which I think was still there for me, you know, after 3 weeks after losing somebody. So, well, I got it. There was definitely a few moments where I could feel myself choking up, and definitely reminding me of my reality, but also like I'm missing one of my favorite characters.
Well, and you stayed really busy at that time, here, because you want to think about it and you don't want to think about it. You want to cry, you don't want to cry.
Right.
It's an amalgamation of emotions that you know are ready to explode.
Right.
I thought what we got about Becky and Darlene was also really good in the show. I feel like I would have liked more moments from them in the episode, but they did have a section together, and I thought it played out really well. And I think in some ways differently, but in terms of like the sister relationship, I think they will end up becoming, if the show goes on and becomes a success, I think they'll become the new Roseanne, Jackie. You know, because they're both such different sisters, but they're very similar. You know, they grew up in the same house, so they have a lot of interactions. You know, like my siblings and I, we all have a lot of, we are very different, but we do have certain core elements. Yeah. And I think that I think the two girls will sort of go down that road of joining together to kind of gather strength for the family and be united. But I'm excited for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, even though I was conflicted with the first episode, I mean, these are still characters that we grew up with, that we love. You know, we still want to see the continuation. And the death of Roseanne is, in fact, a reality for a lot of families. Losing a parent, losing a spouse. So just kind of see how...
what about Mary Steenburgen on the show? What did you think? She seemed to have dived into the performance for a guest starring role on a comedy show. I thought she was very touching, and
it was nice to have that drama for a minute,
especially with Dan, because he was feeling it. And like what does make the show so well is how they can have such serious, horrible moments, and yet still comedy comes out of it. Where Dan made the sign, you know, it's hurtful and sucks for him, but you know it still was funny. You know, he made it work. And I think that's what, you know, that's where the show is really great, where that you get these amazing performances in this show that's a comedy, but has some really dark elements to it.
So where do you think it's going to go?
You know, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Jackie in terms of... I do miss the Jackie that dated all the time. Yeah. You know, she used to date all the time, and it was always kind of...
It led to a lot of comedy.
A lot of comedy. And I could just see Darlene in the background making comments. Yeah. Like she did with Fisher when she was like saying like, oh, aren't you in my biology class or something? Because he was so much younger. I'd like to see that. I'm very excited about Juliette Lewis being a guest star. I mean, because she's going to play Blue with Johnny Galecki's character. Yeah. And they were my favorite. I don't know. I love all the National Lampoon Vacation kids, but I think probably the one I watched the most besides European Vacation was Christmas Vacation. Yeah. And the two of them were really funny together in it. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of come together, because I love Juliette Lewis.
Not his brother and sister, but his...
Juliette Lewis, I feel like you're not in enough stuff, and I'm excited that you're going to be in this. And I think with Johnny Galecki's newfound popularity with The Big Bang Theory, it'll be nice. I think they'll get a good story arc. So I'm looking forward to see that. I want to see what happens with Becky. It is nice to have. I love Lacey Gorson and I love Sarah Chalk, the two Beckys. I love them both for different reasons. I'm glad that Lacey Gorson seems pretty committed to this. It was also good to see, even though I didn't really necessarily agree with her viewpoints, Gina, DJ's wife, played by Maya Lynn Robinson, who I believe had more of a conservative,
Right.
religious sort of outlook. So there you get that viewpoint as
Yeah.
well in terms of that. The girls, I don't think, reacted too well, Becky and Darlene, but it worked out well. It was like the old
It was
school
the
comedy
hell
of
when
them.
they were gonna go to hell or something.
Oh yeah, she's like, oh,
yeah,
we already
we've
have
got a
a
cabana or something
right.
like that.
That was it.
Yeah.
So that could be an interesting dynamic to see come out and in the show.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. What about you? Is there anything you're hoping to see for the upcoming season?
I would definitely like to see David and Darlene and see that kind of dynamic. Especially, you said Juliette Lewis is going to be on the show playing Blue, so I think I'm really kind of interested in that
I think
dynamic.
there'll be some funny moments.
Yeah.
Because Juliette Lewis is a great dramatic actress, but she's also really funny when she's being really funny. So we look forward to watching the upcoming season of The Conners. I'm excited. I think it's hopeful. But we will meet back here when the first official season of The Conners finish, and we'll do a recap and see if you agree with us. Comment, like, or subscribe below. Let us know what you think. Thanks for joining me, Danielle.
You're welcome.
This is 411 Pop Culture, where real people talk about really everything.